What's up, Eager to Pleasers? Welcome back to another episode of the Eager to Please podcast. If you're tuning in for the first time, you are in for a special treat today as we welcome back one of my favorite podcast guests. In fact, the very first podcast guest, Bill O'Hanlon, and he's brought with him an extremely talented artist, songwriter, musician, and producer who goes by J4. They're here to talk about their upcoming album that they wrote together called Being of Sound Mind, which focuses on common mental health issues. And as you know, these topics are the forefront of what the Eager to Please podcast is all about. So with that, let me introduce you, Bill and J4. So excited you guys are joining us. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. So leave it to you guys to come up with this super creative way of talking about mental health in a very relatable way. I mean, who doesn't love music, right?
That's right. I was a psychotherapist for many, many years, for decades, actually. I won't tell you exactly how long because that'll carbon date me. But I found when I started co-writing, mostly in Nashville, that co-writing sessions were a lot like therapy sessions. I mean, you know that, Natalie. You get in there and it's like you're getting deep.
Yeah.
And you're getting honest because you're trying to write the most honest and emotionally connected song you can. And you sort of have to, there's an old joke about, some writer said, oh, it's easy to be a writer. All you have to do is slit your wrists and bleed all over the typewriter because, and that's what we do when we songwrite. We get deep and we get real and we sometimes tell each other, our co-writers, things that we wouldn't tell our partners, that we wouldn't tell our family members, that we wouldn't tell our, casual friends. We get really real. And J4 and I had some discussions about our own mental health struggles and issues and coming through some journeys with that various times. And one day it just coalesced.
I love that. So before we dig into the meat and bones of what Being of Sound Mind is about, do you want to give us a little bit of background? I know, Bill, you've been on before, but a little bit of background about yourself so the people listening for the first time kind of get to know you a little bit.
Good. Well, I just talked, so let's have J4 go first. J4, all about your life in 2020.
Yeah, well, my name is J4. I've been an artist in Nashville for a little over 12, almost 13 years. Moved down here in high school and got a lot of fantastic opportunities in my late high school career, performing with people like Josh Turner and Cage the Elephant, people all over the place, genre-wise. Awesome. Michael W. Smith was a big influence of mine and getting to perform with him. And then I ended up going to Belmont University to study commercial music performance, and I studied there. I studied voice, piano, and guitar for 4 years, and I was set to go on tour. I was set to go do all these things, and COVID hit, and that was a big hindrance to my career in that all the venues just closed down. And so I ended up staying at Belmont, teaching as a TA and getting my graduate degree in commercial music, and studied music performance for 2 more years there. And after I graduated, I've been full-time music since. I did a little bit of a post-grad over at Middle Tennessee State University, but due to my touring schedule this year, I've been focused on just performing. This is my 6th straight week of touring this summer, so it's been a lot of performance, a lot of great opportunities, but I sometimes miss being in that academic role, but stepping out into the actual performance role has been very rewarding for me. So that's where I am in my career right now. And it's cool getting to do a lot of different things. And this project being one of them, this project is very special to me in that it kind of brings together all the different musical influences and people that I've worked with throughout my tenure as a musician. And with it being a multi-genre album, it kind of reflects a lot of my different influences. Each song has its own genre, and that reflects back to the fact that me as an artist, I'm not just one genre, I'm not just one style. I have influences across the breadth of music.
Nice.
And I'll just add to that, J4 is annoyingly talented. He's you'll hear him play guitar and you think, that guy is an amazing guitar player. And then he'll turn to the piano and, oh, he's an amazing piano player. And then he'll pick up a bass, and just go, stop, really. And then he sings and, okay.
I was going to say, wait till you hear him sing.
Forget it, just forget it. And then he's in great demand because he plays all these instruments and he sings so well. People want him to go out on tour with him, and he goes on tour with his own stuff too. But, so I'll brag on him in terms of that. But yeah, I was a psychotherapist for years. I was a singer-songwriter when I was in university and just a little after that. And I decided to become a psychotherapist, a little more count-onable career, and I wanted to help people. I was a former hippie, and I thought I'd like to help people. Now, music helps people, obviously, and this project is especially true with that. But I did that for a bunch of years. I had a family. I had 3 stepkids and a biological child. They all grew up. I moved on, and I wrote a bunch of books on psychotherapy and self-help books. And then I went on the road and I was teaching workshops and giving presentations for the general public and for psychotherapists. And then I put all my stuff online, and when everything went online, and it succeeded well enough so I didn't really have to put too much time and energy into it. It supported me. So I thought, I always wanted to be a songwriter. I don't want to be a performing songwriter because I don't want to travel like I did teaching psychotherapy, but I'd like to see if I could make it as a professional songwriter. So I started coming to Nashville, met amazing people, great, talented people, and I also learned to co-write. I mostly sat in my room like most of us who are songwriters, pouring out my heart on the guitar or piano or whatever. And then they said, oh, no, we co-write here. And, I've learned so much from co-writing and talented co-writers like J4. And I just started to write a lot. You probably saw my post, but just before we're recording this, I wrote my 2,500th song.
Nice.
I've been coming to Nashville for 10 years, so it's average about 250 a year. I love to write. I absolutely love, and I don't have to do all this stuff that J4 has to do. He produces and he plays and sings and all that stuff. All I have to do is show up for the write and, follow up a bit. So that's my background, and I love, love, love to write songs. And this is the first project that's really brought together my psychotherapy career and my songwriting career.
Yeah. Well, and I love that, because it's the perfect segue into how did you come up with the title Being of Sound Mind? Where did that phrase come from, or how did it feel right to call it this?
Yeah, Bill and I wrote a song. I mentioned to Bill, and I think Bill had also wanted to write a song about this, but I had mentioned to Bill about my struggles with generalized anxiety disorder, which is probably one of the most common mental health disorders that's seen throughout the country. A lot of people deal with it. Just mine in particular manifests in certain ways. And with Bill being a psychotherapist, I thought in his previous endeavors, I thought to myself, maybe this would be a fantastic song to write with Bill. I don't think I would have wanted to write that song with anyone else. And so we got in the room, we wrote Anxiety, and I think Bill had wanted to write that title as well. I think we both had that title written down. And so we did
I majored in anxiety in my younger years.
Oh, so it was meant to be. It's a perfect match.
I went to graduate school in depression, but I majored in anxiety in undergraduate. That was it.
But it was a beautiful write, and the track was basically complete by the time we had finished up the write. And when we had followed up, I think it was Bill who had come up with the idea, what if we did more of these for different mental health conditions? And we hopped on a Zoom and talked it out, and we fleshed it out, and Bill came up with this idea called Being of Sound Mind, which is kind of a really cool play on words with the word sound. And I resonated with that a lot. And so we built out 11 tracks around the concept of being of sound mind. And it included ideas from anxiety, depression, obsession, different things that people deal with. And not the buzzword ones like narcissism or psychopathy or things like that. But we did things that are more relatable. Self-compassion, self-harm, things that people go through, because we didn't want this to be some highbrow thing. We wanted this to be something relatable, and that's what we that's at least the origin of Being of Sound Mind. Was we kind of built it off of that first song we wrote, Anxiety.
Nice.
I'm sure
Nice.
Bill has a lot to add to that, but that's the basis of it.
Nice. Well, that's perfect because for people who have not heard this first release, Anxiety, you need to go stream it right now. And lucky for me, I got a sneak peek at the whole list of songs, or at least titles of songs. Is there a sequencing of how you organized your track lists from the beginning to the end? Is there like a journey that you take your listener on? Or was it just kind of like, these are the things that we're feeling, or we think a lot of people would relate to it?
Yeah, I think there is a bit of a journey and a sequencing to it. And we didn't want to leave people sort of, with only the negative aspects of
Sure.
mental health, because both of us have gone through the, dark night of the soul in terms of our mental health struggles and come out the other side. Not that we're perfect, but that suicidal depression kind of
Mm.
stuff that you're not sure you're going to survive, that severe panic attack anxiety stuff that just dominates your life. So we wanted to start there, and when I mentioned earlier, as a singer-songwriter, I came to a crossroads back in my early years. And I thought, music is all about, songwriting is all about me and expressing myself. Psychotherapy is about helping other people. And when I was younger, I was suicidally depressed. And I had a record, no one will know this, it's totally obscure, but it was a woman named Essra Mohawk. And she was a singer songwriter. And she was supposed to be the next sort of Joni Mitchell, but she never made it that big. But I had a friend at the college radio station who gave me this album, and it became my obsession. I loved it. It was a double album. I loved this album. And there was a line in there, and I was miserable at those days. And I had a turntable, and I would pick up the needle and I would play the phrase over and over again. Let me reassure your soul that someone knows you. Let me reassure your soul that someone cares. And I thought, maybe not now, but maybe someday someone will know me and someone will care. And maybe it's worth hanging on to this life for the possibility that someday I'll get through this and I will be loved and I will be cared for and I won't be so lonely and so miserable. And so thinking back on that years later, when I decided to really go all in on being a professional songwriter, I thought music saved my life. It helped save my life.
Oh,
Because
I love
one of
that.
the things that music does articulates things that we can't always put into words. It
Yeah.
makes us feel less alone, like someone else is there, like someone else understands or knows. So that was once J4 and I started talking about this project, we thought, okay, how can we tell the truth about these things? They're not fun. Going through this stuff hard. It's painful, but you can get through it. So can we help people feel seen, validated, and also inject some hope into their situation? So that's our sequencing. We start with the problem stuff and we start to move, as J4 said, into self-compassion and peace and acceptance. And so there is a sequence and a journey to the Being a Sound Mind project. And we do start with the tough stuff, the hard stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's a blessing too that your therapeutic work kind of folds itself naturally into this because you can give, I don't want to say the clinical advice inserted into the songs, but it's also things that you've been through. So you can feel the compassion for people as well. So I think that's really special. Is there a track that either one of you would point to as the emotional center of the album, or are they
Ooh,
all special in their own way? I'm sure they are, but curious.
that's a really good question. I think we'll probably have different answers for
Sure.
this. I think there are a couple emotional centers of the album. There's the positive emotional center, and that I think self compassion or peace might be the most positive emotional center. In
Hmm.
terms of there's kind of two different negative emotional centers as well. I would say that panic attack is probably the largest. The ending of panic attack, especially, is probably the largest emotional, release of pure anxiety and just I think that probably has the most emotional weight to it. But also on the other side, there mental health can present itself in either that overbearing, you know, direction, or it can present itself in a more numb, kind of nonchalant way where it's almost you go numb.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a push and pull between them. And I think that the emotional weight of panic attack next to the emotional weight of something like self-harm are probably the two tracks that really carry the heaviest emotional weight for me. And then, of course, peace being the most positive emotional place because we're all searching for that. So,
For sure.
though self-compassion is probably the happiest on the album, and the most upbeat song is Obsessing. But definitely Panic Attack and Self-Harm are the emotional centers of the album for me. I don't know how you feel about that, Bill, but
For me, anxiety has a place, a warm place in my heart. It's in a weird way because I, I specialize in anxiety for the first decades of my life. It was just a constant companion for me. I was always anxious, shy, worried about what other people thought of me, just plagued by that. I've only had a few panic attacks, but those were jump out of my skin kind of hard. Those were like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be anywhere. I want to be out of my skin and out of my life. So, but anxiety was my constant companion. And then I visited Depression Land quite seriously in my in my young years, in my young adult years. So that one has a great resonance. Because I was a psychotherapist, when I first came to Nashville, I started writing a lot of songs about relationships. And, I would tell people I was a couples therapist for 40 years. And they go, oh, all right. You got the stories. And, I wouldn't tell anybody specific stories, but I knew when it rang true, the troubles that people had and the love that people found. And so, the same thing with the mental health stuff. As soon as J4 and I started talking about this stuff, we quickly came up with this list of common things. We could have written about a lot of other things, but these are the most common things I saw in my practice as a psychotherapist. A lot of anxiety, jealousy, panic attack, burnout, obsessing about things, depression, self-harm. And then loneliness, that was one that I suffered from a great deal. And I think there's an epidemic of loneliness, partly because of social media, and the disconnection that happens in everyday life. But then we get into forgiveness and self-compassion and peace. And that's the journey that most of my clients took when they successfully used therapy to change their lives. So it all resonates with me. But yeah, I think for me, if I had to vote, anxiety and depression that's what I said. I majored in anxiety in undergrad and depression in graduate school. So,
Yeah.
and then I graduated, hopefully.
Yes, exactly. Well, were there any times during this writing process where you had two different perspectives that you had to pull from? And if you did, how did you get to the center where you resolved it, where you kind of compromised? Or no, maybe you didn't.
No, we're pretty good co-writers.
Nice.
It's just flows right back and
It
forth.
just flows.
And
Okay.
J4 would turn around and play something, and by then I'd put a couple of lines. And he goes, "No, how about this and this? Oh yeah, this line. This is good." We're very good collaborators, and
Love it.
we're also very fast. We'd usually, when we get together, because we're both busy, we'd write 2 songs in a session, in a
Wow.
2 or 3 hour session. So it's pretty good partnership. We have a lot of respect. I think when you find this, Natalie, because you co-write, but when you find your best co-writers and the ones that it just flows with, you don't mind. You're looking forward to getting into that room. Sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
feels like, you're pickaxe and you're hitting rock, and sometimes it's just flowing like water, and it flowed like water for the most part. But I also attribute that to J4 is such a musical genius. we start to do the song, and then he knows what the feel is. It's going to be rock. It's going to be, singer-songwriter. It's going to be, whatever. He knows the feel that song should have.
Well, and
And he has
I'll
the
interject
skills.
with Bill. Um, Bill is a bit of a lyrical savant, so he'll read my mind before I even get to the phrase, and he'll be writing the phrase, and I'll literally be singing the line, and then the phrase will be already written. It's almost like it appears as I'm reading it. I mean, he's so quick with the lyrics, and they're all great.
I'm the
Um,
ChatGPT of lyrics, I say.
I would say you're significantly better than ChatGPT, but I would
Facts,
say Bill
facts.
is faster than ChatGPT. But whether it's prose, whether it's lyrics, whether it's poetry, Bill is a phenomenal. Uh, he's phenomenal with his words, and I think that helps with me because I am a melody based writer. I write based on melodies and chords and harmonic structures. That's what I learned from my academic training. And so having someone who's got that lyrical perspective, I think flows incredibly well. Um, Bill being probably the best lyricist I've ever worked with. I mean,
Aw.
I don't know.
Well,
You're right
that
up there
sort of
with
brings,
like Kirsty Manna and Jan Buckingham and the
yeah, there,
the great
right there.
writers that I've had a chance to work with. Steve Dorff. I mean, Bill's
The
the
perfect
fastest by
pairing.
far. Michael
Yeah.
J. Yeah.
Well, the other thing, and that brings to mind what Jay Forrest said about words. Each of these songs has a mini essay that goes with it. Anxieties is out at this point, and it has original art.
Nice.
You want to tell us about the art, J4?
Yeah, we commissioned this incredible artist named Gina Jackson. She's an artist based out of Franklin, Tennessee, and she did individual art pieces, one for the actual album itself, but then one for each song on the album. And she used her impressionistic style. She has this kind of impressionistic, um, layer based style that is very unique to her. And she uses art as a trauma processing medium. And it's quite beautiful. And it's actually a direct analog to what we talk about in this album of processing our own traumas and our own mental health woes through music. Gina does that through art. And when you look at her art, it's just absolutely beautiful. And so we commissioned these pieces of artwork, and we just let her run with it. We didn't tell her what to do or anything. We just said, here are the songs. And she listened to the songs as she was creating the art. And the results were absolutely incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It,
Very cool.
I can't wait for everyone to see these.
I know. I feel like a schoolgirl over here. I'm just like, I
Yeah.
cannot wait for this whole album
J4
to
knew
come out.
her, and when she heard about the project, she said, "I'm all in. This is my life.
Love
I
it.
use art to transform mental health issues and trauma." So it was just meant to be. We all three came together to work on this project, and
Sure.
I love it. And now we're on your podcast because I knew you had an interest in this because of your own personal interests and background and all that stuff. So it's perfect combo here.
It really is. It is. And I was just going to say, it sounded like all of these little sessions were mini therapy sessions. And so I'm curious, did you each learn something from the other? I mean, aside from, we know Bill has his history and his experience in therapy, and J4, you have an amazing palette for sound and all things music. So I'm curious if you guys learned anything from each other during this process that you didn't already know, either about yourself or about the other person.
Oh, well, yeah, I learned some stuff about what J4 went through when he went to university. J4 was, he had the terrible thing of being a genius kid, and he's a genius adult too. There's a lot of pressure on
Sure.
kids, when they're that talented,
Yeah.
when they're that smart. That's why I said he's annoyingly talented. He's smart, he's good academically, he's a great singer. It's like, oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden you grow up and there's all this expectation, all this pressure put on you. And of course, you internalize it. So
Yep.
I learned a lot about J4's story. But I'll tell you one other thing when you talked about this project. Years ago, I was hearing an interview with this guy. He was a news guy. Bob Simon was his name. And he was being interviewed on Fresh Air, if you know that NPR program. It's a great interview program. And he was covering the war, the first Gulf War with Iraq. And he was captured by the Iraqi army. And he was Jewish. And they did not appreciate that he was Jewish. They had a bias against that. And they basically tortured him, made it look like they were going to kill him every day. And finally, the U.S. put pressure on them. The Iraqis lost the war, put pressure on him. They got him back. And, he wrote a book about his experiences. And Terry Gross was asking him at Fresh Air, do you ever have post-traumatic stress? He said, I did until I finished the book. And as soon as I turned the book in, it was in the book. I didn't have to do it anymore. And I think there's something about writing these songs out that give you a little distance. Give me, I don't know, J4 can speak for himself about this, but they gave me a little, like I can look at it a little more objectively rather than have to be in the middle of it. We both gone through horrific mental health things. I'm not in the middle of them anymore. They're sort of in the past, like Bob Simon's book, put it out into the world, kind of put it in a container, and it doesn't emerge so much for me.
Yeah, I want to reflect on your question and then on what Bill just said as well. I think there's a misconception with high achieving individuals. I mean, Bill is one of the highest achieving individuals you can find. I mean, writing 50 something books, being on Oprah, all these things that Bill has done, 40 years in psychotherapy. He's written 10 bajillion songs. Bill is by all measures a high achieving individual. And there's a misconception about high achieving individuals and that they can kind of be golden boys or we can kind of put this, we can paint this character around them that they're not as human as the rest of us. Or they have some secret to their lives that we don't have. And I think as I got to know Bill more through this project, it made me realize, well, he's gone through a lot of the same struggles I've gone through. And he's come out the other side, and he has become this incredible figure in psychotherapy and music. And so maybe I can too. And that's the idea, is Bill kind of, as I got to know him more, he represents hope. That even though he went through these things, and a lot of high achieving individuals go through these things, there is that hope that you can persevere through those things, overcome them, and then transmute them into beauty. And that's something that with this project I feel is very much present, for sure.
Nice. Yeah. I love that. And welcome to the Eager to Please podcast. I mean, this was part of the reason why I started this, for some of the same things that we've talked about, on your episode, Bill, and then obviously going through this record of yours. You touch on a lot of the things that this podcast stands for. And I'm just so excited that you guys are doing this. This is amazing. So were there any topics that you guys felt were off limits, or did you kind of run out of space because, you have 10, 11 tracks? Do you think there'll be a part 2, or are you just kind of marinating in this one now because there's so much you could talk about and so much you could add? But I'm curious.
We did have a few other topics that we considered, but we wanted to keep the project, relatively normal size. 11 songs, a lot to produce at the same. That's for J4's job, and then we have to get it mixed and mastered and get all the essays and all that stuff. So who knows what we'll do in the future, but we didn't include everything that we possibly could have. We considered some, and it's just what songs came through our discussions and through our collaboration, I think. Sure. I mean, who knows what could happen? We have talked about we're still in the planning phases. The first single has come out. J4 may release some more before the album comes out. It's supposed to come out in October, but we've been in discussions a little, and we've been searching around for a mental health music charity that we can funnel some of the profits of this project to. And again, we'll talk to Gina. Maybe she can auction off some of these artworks if
Yeah.
it gets some attention. And we'd like to raise money for some. And there's a bunch in Nashville. There's a bunch of national ones, but J4 has been in discussion a little with the Music Health Alliance there in Nashville. I think he's had some discussions about that, and I admire that charity. So we're hoping that happens. And if it went really big, we'd like to do more for that. We'd like to do more
Sure.
fundraising for them.
Yeah,
And
we could have done hundreds of songs. I feel like
Exactly.
we could have done 50 to 100 of these songs. But they were coming out so quickly, and they probably still, if we got in the room, we'd still probably write 3 in the span of 2 hours.
yeah.
We definitely could write more in the future. I think we were limited by the constraints of, well, we want this to be album length and also production time. To get 11 songs produced very well
Yeah.
and at the quality that we were looking at. I mean, we have some heavy hitters on this album in terms of production, and so getting it produced at the level that we wanted took about 2 years about.
Wow.
So we might write the tracks really quickly, but in order to get them releasable quality at at the level we would like to, it was really getting Mark Lonsway to mix. I mean, he's one of the best mixers in Nashville, if not the best. He mixed for 20 years at Warner Chappell, so he knows what he's doing. And then having Sam Moses, who does the mastering for Jelly Roll and all these major artists, having people like that really brought this project to another level. I can mix and produce and do things myself, but having them on the project really elevated the quality to a point where we are just over the moon about the quality of this album.
I'm so excited to hear the full thing. Do you guys have a lyric or a line that you would say is your favorite out of any of the tracks? I'm sure there's so many, but if there's one that stands out
There
to
are,
you.
but I mean, just even the first release here, anxiety. Why you got to be so mean to me? We sort of personified anxiety, and that's the way it felt to me. Like I was being tortured by anxiety. Like, what did I do to deserve this
Yeah.
anxiety? Why you got to be so mean to me? Wow, that just hit me really hard because I was tortured and dominated and run by anxiety for so many years. It's funny. I was a public speaker, and I was such a shy guy. And public speaking was like I went to college and I took a speech course, and the teacher announced at the beginning of the course, everybody's going to give a speech in this class, and I immediately went and dropped out. There was no way I was going to give a speech in this class. I ended up being a public speaker. And my joke is, I was terrified for the first 300 of my public speaking experiences. And then I must have burned out my nerve cells because I don't get all that nervous anymore. But yeah,
Now look at you. Yeah.
yeah, look at me, just glib and easy as falling off a log to talk. But yeah, anxiety was pretty mean to me in my younger years. And so that line, just whenever I hear it, I go, that's right. It's not, anxiety doesn't actually personify, but it felt like personal. It felt personal. It
Yeah.
felt like, why is this happening to me? Why am I being tortured? I'm a good person. Why do I deserve this? And so that line, whenever it comes up, it really stands out to me. That's one of mine.
It's a good one.
For me, in that song in particular, that second verse, trauma bonding with my friends, they like the drama, but I'm nothing like them. That one's just such a real line for me. I think I laughed a little bit during the write because I was like, wow, this is so on the head. I think Bill had written that, and I'm like, It's like you're reading my mind, Bill.
Yeah, there he goes
But
again.
it's such a common thing when you have anxiety, to use your trauma as a way to connect with other people, because
Mhm.
anxiety, especially in the social sense, changes the way in which you interact with people. And so that was that's probably my favorite line in anxiety. It's very relatable to me. But one of the more fun lines is also in the verse of Obsessing, which is the next single off of this album. That one's going to be coming out August 21st.
Ooh.
But Obsessing, I like the line, my train of thought runs the same old track. Am I really sick or just a hypochondriac? Um, that rhyme is probably my favorite rhyme, because I don't think anyone has ever in a song, and let us know,
Rhymed
reach out to
hypochondriac.
me
Yeah.
reach out to me if another song rhymes the word track with hypochondriac, but I've never heard the song or the word hypochondriac be rhymed in a song. And of course, that's the work of Bill O'Hanlon over
I was
here.
gonna
But
say that's so
that
Bill,
that's
but I love it.
such
Yeah.
a Bill line, and it's just so true though. um when you're obsessing about something, it's just that is just such a cool rhyme to me, and I would have never thought of that, being able to rhyme
Yeah.
hypochondriac.
Yes.
that
Yes.
that was a cool one.
Very clever. Well, now that we are on the impending eve of the release of the entire album coming up here in a couple months, what does success look like for you guys beyond the streams and the sales? Because obviously that would be amazing, which I have no doubt it's going to do well. But what would make you feel like it did what you wanted it to do?
Well, some time ago, J4 had just gone through a personally traumatic thing, and he came out to a round that I was doing. He was playing in it, I think, next round. And I played a song, and J4's out
This
there,
story.
and tears just streaming down his face. And,
Oh,
it's a terrible thing as a songwriter, but you go, yes,
yes, right.
yes, he relates to this. I mean, it touched him emotionally. You could laugh, or you could cry, or you could be thinking, that's me. That song is about me. To touch someone and have them, feel validated, feel heard,
Mhm.
feel known, put into words what they didn't put into words or hadn't yet. That is obviously the biggest reward. If somebody hears that song, they go, you wrote that song for me. It's like you were, like J4 said, it's like you were in my mind. It's like you were
Yeah.
in my heart. You knew what I was going through. And that when I was picking up that needle and that woman was singing that, line, I felt like she was speaking to me. So, I mean, that's the first level of hope that, what this song would be. It get to somebody in the world, even one person, but hopefully many more than one. And they would think, somebody knows me, somebody cares, somebody understands. I'll make it through this. That would be great. And they would like to sell a jillion copies and
Yeah.
give millions to mental health music charities.
Nice. Love it. What about for you, J4?
Yeah, I feel very similar. I still remember that moment very fondly, Bill. You were singing Late Night Talks with Jesus at 12 Keys
Right.
Saloon.
Oh, 12 Keys. Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
blast
the
from the
12
past.
Keys Saloon back in Hermitage. RIP to
Yes.
12 Keys. But that was a very impactful moment, because I had never had a song. I really have never gone out to a round and just bawled my eyes out to a song. But I had just lost my ex-fiance, and it was literally the week after. And I'm just sitting there in 12 keys, and Bill plays that final chorus of that song. And it hit me like a Mack truck going 90 miles an hour. I mean, that was, what could I have done to make her stay? Why do hearts fall anyway? And he's asking Jesus. I'm like, ooh. And still to this day, it's hard not to cry to that song, because I just remember that moment. But if
Right.
someone could experience that, whether they feel the joy of, forgiveness or self-compassion, or whether they relate to the feeling of anxiety, but if they could just understand that they're not alone, that's the success in my eyes of this album. So on the individual level, that the listener experiences and understands that these things are not singular. We don't go through them alone, and it's so easy to think that we do go through these things alone, um, because they are isolating and they are debilitating.
Yeah, really wrong with us that we feel these things. And I think, you know, again, I'm of a different generation than both of you. When I was growing up, there was a woman in my neighborhood, small neighborhood, close neighborhood, who'd been in a psychiatric hospital. Everyone would go by her house. She stayed in there because the stigma was so great after she got out of the hospital. It's like, that's where the crazy lady lives. And, I grew up to be a therapist, and I thought that was so weird when I was growing up that people would whisper about it. And then when I became a therapist, I remember going into a bank one day, and I was part of an employee assistance program that my mental health center was providing for this bank. And the bank manager said, 10 years ago, no one talked about their problems at work. And now everybody comes in and they'll like break down crying at their desk. And we have an open seating thing, and all their friends will come over and they go, "What happened? Oh, my husband and I had a fight this weekend. I think we're going to get a divorce." They go, "Oh, I have a really good couples therapist I'll send you to." And people were a little more open. So that was some years after that. But still, there's a bit of a stigma. There's a bit of shame with mental health issues. And if we can destigmatize this and have open discussions, and again, have people feel they're not so weirdly alone and wrong for experiencing this, that it's such a common human experience, and that there are ways through this, whether it's therapy or other things, spirituality and religion, friendship and kindness, and, whatever else, whatever gets you music, whatever gets you through those times. That would be a great thing if we could contribute to that conversation, because younger people are a lot more open about it now, but it also seems to be a lot more common that people are more troubled these days. Maybe, again, social media, maybe it's financial pressures, especially living in Nashville. That's a tough place to live, and so a lot of the songwriters I work with, they're struggling mental health wise, emotionally, relationally.
On a larger meta level, we'd love for this. The reason we would love to see success for this album is so that we can give back to the music health community, particularly Music Cares or the Music Health Alliance or different charities. So it's less of a vanity project and more of a project that we hope gets big so that we can give back. And that's the point of this project. It's not, oh, look at me and how pretty I am on Instagram, or look at how great I can sing. It's more, listen to these songs, connect with these songs, and hopefully help support something larger than just an artist, just a songwriter. Like, this is a project that is much bigger than that. And I hope people can see that and resonate with that.
I love everything about that.
I do have another agenda, and that is, I'm a big fan of J4, and when you know this, Natalie, when you find somebody you think they're so great, why doesn't the whole world know about them?
Yes.
And I want the whole world to hear J4's talent, his music. Every time he plays, I'm just like, holy moly, he's so good, and I want the world to see it. So I do have that agenda too, not just the charitable one, but I want everybody in the world to hear J4.
Let's get him out there. Yes.
Yeah, get him out there and get him, so to rise all his music, not just this project, but the people go back and find his other stuff, and they'll hear his future stuff, because he's got big plans, and he's written a lot of songs that are going to come out over time, and will write more. And so he writes with amazing people, and I want people to hear him.
Yes. Well, on that note, how can we best support your cause so more people can hear the album and follow both of you, because you're both talented in your own right, whether you're writing, whether you're playing, whether you're singing.
Well, this is a songwriter, Natalie, and that is streaming music. It gets it heard, but it doesn't make much money.
Right.
The people that aren't in the songwriting or music business, It's like 0.000, keep adding 0.14 cents per stream. And that's a whole stream, or at least a long part of it, the song gets played. We love it if people that actually go, it costs you $1.25 or 99 cents, depending on where you go, Google Play or Apple Music, to download the song. That would be great. And if you have a Spotify subscription, if you even save the song to play offline, it makes a little more money than just streaming it. So we'd love to actually have that. Is probably the thing that could make the most financial difference. Streaming, obviously, YouTube gets a little more money than, and Apple Music get a little more money than Spotify. So, but you can find it on all those streaming services. And J4 is the artist. I actually lurk in the background. I'm more the songwriter, behind the scenes guy, but you can find me on some of the socials too. I'm on all of them, but
We will make
J4,
sure we link those in our
yeah,
podcast so everyone can find you there.
cool.
So what haven't we talked about this project that you want everyone to know about?
That's a very good question.
It's,
You've had exhaustive questions. These have been
I
It made you
phenomenal
think a
questions.
little. Made you think a
well,
little bit.
I do think that, J4 and I have talked about this. I'll go over to J4's house, and he has a studio in his house. He just moved, so I haven't seen his new place yet. But in the old place, I'd go in there and I'd walk in and there was nothing. And in an hour, 3 hours, whatever it may be, sometimes we'd have a roughly produced track and a song. And to me, that's like alchemy. Like back in the Middle Ages, when they'd go in a room and they just turn lead into gold, or they take air and they transform it into something valuable. I think music is like that. Music is like alchemy. Right? Songwriting is like alchemy. Making music is like alchemy. And also, listening to these songs could be alchemical for people who are going through something. That transformational process of turning this pain and suffering into gold.
Mm.
That's, I think, what we were aiming to do, what we did with ourselves, what we do when we write music, when we're creative, is instead of being a victim of those mental health issues, to acknowledge them and be able to transform them and move on with your life. I mean, the fact that I went through depression and anxiety and some other mental health issues makes me a better artist, makes me a better person, hopefully, more compassionate to other people when they're suffering, rather than just, get it together. What do it makes me a softer and kinder person because I've suffered and I know what it's like to go through suffering. And I hope that that's the message that goes out there, and that some alchemical transformation can happen through this work.
Yeah, from the artist perspective, I think one thing I'd love to express to other artists or other songwriters or aspiring artists and songwriters is that it's okay to not fit in with the mold, that it's okay to not just focus on what the industry wants right now. The industry wants era building songs that sound very similar on an album. They want to feel like they are in the same place in the same time for a particular album. And so all of the themes will be the same. And this genre, or this album, is multi-genre. It's very atypical of your normal album being released right now. It's a concept album. And I think I'd love to implore other songwriters and other artists to think outside the box and not be so boxed into what the industry tells you, because the industry is just that. It's only about making money, and this project is not about that. And as an artist, yes, we need to survive and we need to pay the bills, but it's so important to do passion projects and explore things that you are passionate about. And this album is something that both Bill and I built based purely on our passions and based on our life experience. And with kind of not a reckless disregard, but a relative disregard of whether the industry cares about the packaging or um, the multi-genre basis of it. It's a very unique album, and So for any aspiring singer-songwriters or artists, I just want you to know it's okay to explore different things. You don't have to be so focused on pigeonholing yourself into one genre or one style or one idea or one concept or one image. It's okay to reinvent yourself song to song, album to album within the same song. It's okay to open your brain creatively, because that's what our job is as artists, is to open our brains creatively. So don't let the industry tell you how to conduct your artistry.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Hollywood and the music industry. They want Fast and Furious 14. They want what worked before. And that's not what you're going to provide. You're going to provide you. And then all of a sudden, somebody comes along, and is totally different from other people. And then they go, okay, we want that now. We want everybody should be Taylor Swift, or everybody should be Ed Sheeran. No,
It's
you're
been done.
bringing, yeah, it's been done, and they're going to do it better than you. That kind of stuff. Morgan Wallen. We're all going to write Morgan Wallen songs now. Great. He's great at it, but can you do what you do and bring that as unique as your fingerprints? And, again, that's what gets you through mental health stuff. Instead of saying there's something wrong with me, I need to be different from how I am, can I somehow have self-compassion and embrace all those weirdnesses within me, all those quirkinesses within me, all that stuff? That's what makes us artists. We're kind of messed up and sensitive and creative and all rolled into this weird ball of you as an artist.
True.
Yes, absolutely. Bill, J4, I have enjoyed every minute of this. Thank you both so much for sharing all of the insights and what we can expect from Being of Sound Mind. Stay tuned for October 2026 when this is out in the world. And again, you guys are amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Natalie.
Thank
We
you,
really
Natalie.
appreciate it. We're eager to please, and we hope we're still working on it.